I'm Corrie Lynn Green.
And I'm Doug Fern, and we're here today to talk about Corrie's new album, Day 4 of Living on the Edge. And to get started, Corrie, why don't you talk a bit about your life and your musical journey?
Okay. I'm from the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, and I grew up in a town called Harrisonburg when I was really young. We moved around all the time. Sometimes we were living in government housing or apartments, and sometimes other places out into the county. Eventually, when I was around 13 or 14, I moved closer to Shenandoah National Park and spent the rest of my teen years living there and learning about the culture and being surrounded by bluegrass music. Once we moved there, we had a bluegrass jam at our house every Friday night. And my dad was an amazing bluegrass musician who played banjo and guitar. And just started getting more familiar with that culture and becoming part of that culture.
We should talk a little bit about how the title to the album came about.
Yes. We came up with an idea, something we had been talking about for a long time, was if we could just have a week together where everyone could be together. In our fantasy, it was somewhere really cool. And whenever a creative idea would come up, we'd be able to just go into the studio and kind of work it out. But everyone's schedules were really busy. And of course, that's really a difficult thing to do. We finally came up with the idea that I would just come up and stay a little bit longer than I normally do. And we would sort of work off of that premise. And so we had 4 full days, 5 nights. And basically I would come in with just a really light framework that maybe I'd written a song the night before. Most of the songs were written the evening before we would record them. I would come up with these ideas. Sometimes I would work late into the night. Sometimes I would feel, this pressure of wanting to have something to show in the morning. And sometimes it would come really easily. And then the next morning we would get up really early and we'd all get together and we'd start collaborating on, what I had written. Sometimes it was even more sparse than that, where I just had an idea or a couple of ideas. And then we would basically collaborate, figure out parts, and start creating the song together as a team. And we did that day after day after day. And surprisingly, the songs we came up with were really great. It came from a more raw place, I think, and it wasn't as cultivated, or I wasn't thinking as much about who I am as a songwriter. It was just what else is in there. And when it goes on that long, you just have to pull from wherever you have left. So the songs are really different on this album because of that, because I was just pulling from the very bottom of myself in many ways.
Yeah, and for me, it was equally pressurized because
I bet.
And all the previous albums, we pretty much had them figured out weeks before we got to the studio.
Yes.
And we were able to provide the players with a demo with plenty of time so that they could listen to it and start formulating ideas. But this time, I don't think they heard any of it until we were in the studio that each morning.
Yeah, they didn't hear anything at all. And you only heard a very smallest amount of one.
Yeah. Yeah. So when we sat down to discuss the song on the 4th day, the last day of the album, everybody was coming in. It's a very social first half hour,
right?
Even after 4 days. And I said, okay, we got to start working on this song. And I said, welcome to day 4 of Living on the Edge.
Yes. And it was the perfect thing to say because it's what I felt like with my, staying up really late trying to create songs, and then us coming in after so many days in a row, just being kind of, more silly, more tired, but also more together, like roommates in some way. We were knowing each other even more deeply. And it did feel like you never knew what was going to happen on the day that you woke up or what would be created. It felt very fresh, and that was the perfect thing to say.
Yeah, and you know, that approach to it, probably not quite that intense, but that idea of creating the song and the arrangement in the studio before we record it rather than having it all figured out ahead
Yeah.
of time really got everybody, all the players involved.
Yes.
And they loved that.
Yeah.
And, you know, the next album, which we just started this past weekend, we took basically the same approach, where we were a little bit more ahead of it because I knew the song.
Yes.
But when we get everybody in there and you have your original melody and your original chord structure and everything, and the guys just, you know, came up with idea after idea after idea, so that they really made it into a record.
Yes, I really don't think the last two records, the one we're currently making and Day 4 of Living on the Edge, could have been done without this particular team. Willingness to be creative, to think about what you're doing and how you want to make it different, to constantly just always having the next instrument that may bring something, just some little piece that you've never heard before or that gives it a special flavor. Even yesterday when we were working on something, having someone just say, what if we go here? Because as a songwriter and someone who's, you know, basically, you know, putting a chord structure together, you can get trapped and stuck. To have these incredible musicians who know how to get unstuck. And even to try something that doesn't work, to just try things that aren't working as part of the process. That's why we have you. You're really good at seeing when we're kind of moving in the wrong direction and sort of corralling us back to a place where the song is going to be always what I dream it will be. So we're really lucky to have the entire team. I don't think it would work without, you know, my ideas in terms of lyricism and what story I want to tell, your ideas and sort of keeping us on that track, and then the musicians themselves just having so much skill, talent, and willingness to kind of put the work in to these ideas.
Yeah, you know, your notion, because it's your song.
Yeah, luckily, you know, we had something like this happen just the other day, and because I come from, you know, this background question in the beginning was a really good one, because I come from a place where there's just, you're organically feeling all the time. I don't come from the place of like an educated background when it comes to music, and in some ways that can be, you know, difficult, and in some ways that can make the creative process really much bigger and much more expansive. And so where someone may want that perfect little piece, and we get those all the time, and I'm always really pleased with that, but yeah, having the autonomy to say, this is why I create this little problem, this little imperfection. We've been talking a lot about, you know, how things like AI changes music and kind of makes it all the same. And you get this perfect product, but you don't get any of the emotion of a person. And the way that I look at lyricism is like a little puzzle. So sometimes you'll find me coming out of the box just slightly, or maybe doing a lyricism where I'm adding a word, I'm sort of squishing it together. But even though I came up in this sort of bluegrass and traditional tradition, I was always listening to like, you know, the Beastie Boys, and I had a really wide variety of styles of music. There's almost no music that I don't enjoy or can't find something that I enjoy. So the idea that I could create what I wanted and tell the story in my way, and sometimes even like with rap, sort of squeeze things together a little bit, or make things rhyme that don't necessarily have a rhyming tone, is something I really enjoy putting in there. And if the story's not told just right, that's one of the only things that'll kind of tick away in my mind, that I have to have it correct. But no one's ever stopped me from doing that. And in fact, you and the team have always said to me, okay, you know, you might want to get it into the 1, 2, 3, 4, right? But as long as I can do that or find a way to do that, you know, I'm sort of allowed to keep these concepts going. And even when I can't do that, they find a way to play around it, which is a pretty incredible skill, actually.
Yeah, and we should really talk about those people, because
Yes.
they're such an important part.
Agreed.
And, you know, when I first met you, I heard Blow Away which is the title of your first album. And that song, was just convinced me that I needed to work with you.
I'm so thankful.
And it was a challenge to find people to play.
Yes.
Because you didn't really have anybody that was backing you up, because you were mostly a solo act performing at that stage.
At that time, yes.
And so I'm thinking, this is all on me to find people to do this. And my first thought was Cate Monaco.
Yes.
Because I knew that her voice and yours being totally different, but she's such a good, she just has this knack for inhabiting the person that she's singing with.
You always hear these stories about like sister harmonies and how incredible they are and natural they are. And I feel like Cate can show up and just become a sister to anyone that she's singing with, to really not live the life that I lived and to really not know the background of the emotion of the stories. But she gets it and she studies it and she becomes that sister. Without Cate's support, I mean, she also helped me grow as a vocalist. I also have never considered myself to be that. I sing these songs in the mountain way, but over time, having her support has been really important. And she's an incredible vocalist in her own right.
She's got a solo career that's going to amaze people.
Absolutely. I always say, what are you doing singing with me?
Yeah.
She deserves a lot of accolades, but just sort of becoming part of the song is a real skill she has.
She does. And I knew right off that she would be just right.
Yeah.
And at that time, she and Adam Monaco weren't married.
That's right.
But they had been together for quite a while.
Yes.
And so when I called up, I talked to both of them about what I was trying to do and who I needed. Now, Adam is a mandolin player.
Right.
An amazing mandolin player.
Yes.
Plays a lot of bluegrass. He also does his own original songs, which are great. And so I said, Adam, what I need is an upright bass player and a guitarist, acoustic guitarist. I said, who do you know? Who would you suggest? You know what I'm looking for.
Right.
And so a week went by and we talked again. He says, well, I haven't really found exactly what you're looking for, but I can play guitar.
Yes.
And I said, well, I've heard him play guitar, and he's good.
Yes.
And I said, okay, let's try that. And he says, and I don't really know an upright bass player that I would recommend for this, but I work with this guy, Peter Oswald, who plays cello.
Yes.
Who's just an amazing cello player in all kinds of styles. I mean, he has a lot of different musical influences and people he's played with and, performances he's done in all kinds of genres. So I said, okay. I had never really heard Peter play.
Right.
So what year was that? 2021, I guess?
Yeah, 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I brought those two in with you, and it was like, who knows what's going to happen? Is this going to work? Is this going to be a disaster?
Yes.
Because we had tried a couple other people, just
Yeah.
briefly, not really seriously recording.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't a good fit.
Right.
And those two were perfect. So they're, the core of that first album.
The core of that first album has only gotten stronger. That first album, we were learning who we were together as a team. But you're right. I mean, I've thought a lot about why certain things fit and certain things don't fit. It doesn't have so much to do with the talent of a musician. For me, everyone that I always worked with had incredible talent. But there's something else that just clicks, like any relationship that you have. And the musical one is a really special one. Adam Monaco, who everybody should go check out because he is really an incredible songwriter and musician. And he also is hilarious and, brings some comic relief to, I can be really serious and my songs can be really serious. But just right when you need it, when you're working on something musically or you're getting to a frustrated point, he'll interject something that's just really funny or fun. And I really appreciate that. I needed to trust the people I was around because I was such a beginner in many ways of working with people, and I needed to feel comfortable and not be so inside of my head. And Adam really brought that to the table and just supported me with his guitar playing in a way that I really needed, and he encouraged my playing, and he just encouraged me all around. He brought enthusiasm to the table. Peter Oswald, I can't say enough about. I still feel that way today as well. Peter brings so much beauty with the cello, so much rhythm with the cello. And I feel like Peter is the one that if I'm really stuck, if I'm really struggling, he just deserves so much credit for getting me out of these positions and saying, what about this? He's an incredible teacher. That's what he does for a living. And he can get on the piano and play something to get me out of a chord or a mode that I'm in. And he also can hear when we're getting off track. He's really good at sort of pulling us back into place or the timing of things. And again, just an incredible human, a kind human. These are people who made me feel safe in the beginning and that I could sort of explore what we were trying to do and make a really simple, beautiful album, which is what Blow Away really was.
We did several songs on that first album with Adam and Peter, and brought in Cate to do background vocals.
Mm-hmm.
And then we came up with a song, and forgive me, but I can't remember which one it was.
I think it might have been In a Small Town.
I think you're right. Yeah. And I just said, this song needs drums.
Yes.
It doesn't need big in-your-face drums. It just needs some nice, subtle rhythm throughout the song because it's a rhythmic song.
Yes, very rhythmic.
Yeah. So.
Oh, and If You Gotta Go.
That's true. That one too. Yep. And John O'Reilly, who is one of the best drummers I've ever worked with.
Yes.
He plays with the Hazelrig Brothers Trio. He's the drummer on all their records and performing sometimes. He makes his living doing drum tracks for people.
Right.
And he's really good at it and just such a talented musician. John playing drums over there. We've got Peter playing cello over there.
Yeah.
We've got Adam playing acoustic guitar over there.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're in different positions, but that's our basic setup.
Yes.
And he can play with them in a way that there's enough isolation between everybody that it works.
Yeah, his greatest skill is to know exactly what to do, when to do it, and he never overtakes anything. And with drumming, I think that's a real skill to just be perfectly with the track. Right. But yeah, just the other day when we were trying to discuss, should this be an A minor, should this be an F? He said, I think A minor, right? He's got an opinion and he understands what's happening musically. I've never heard a better drummer. I've never played with him, and I've played with him a lot since that first album. I've never heard him get it wrong.
No, absolutely not. And we don't use a click track. We have no need for a click track.
That's right.
We've got John. Not that I would use a click track anyway.
That's right. No click tracks.
No. So he's just a tremendous asset.
Yes.
And he's actually been on the background vocals on a couple of songs.
That's right. He's on the background vocals of White Trash Kids. And what's the other one that really makes me laugh? It might be that one.
Way Down Here.
Way Down Here. That's right. Yeah, that's right. Which we haven't released yet.
Right.
So he's incredibly talented. And again, these are all just awesome human beings. Another person that just is easy to be around and shows up ready. All of these musicians show up ready.
Yeah, they're absolutely prepared.
Yeah.
And at some point, there was some song, and I think it was Angel's Teeth.
Yeah.
Which is the second album? second album.
That's the first album, isn't
Is
it?
it? Oh, gee.
There was a lot of stuff on that album.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right. And I just thought, this needs an electric guitar part.
Yes.
And actually, on Angel's Teeth, it's a different electric guitar player.
Yeah.
But it was on some other song where we needed that. And I just needed somebody that really understood what the song needed.
Yes.
And Tom Spiker, who I've known for a number of years, but I never worked with him in the studio. I just heard what he did.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And when I thought that I would when we needed a guitar part, electric guitar part on one of the songs, I thought, well, Tom would be great for this. But I never worked with him that way. So he has his own studio. So I just sent him the tracks and I said, see what you can do. And I explained to him what my thought was on it. And like the next day, he sends me like 6 different versions with different guitars and different styles and all that to pick from. And like all of them were great.
Yeah. Tom Spiker is an incredible talent. I've never really seen anything like it. I just feel like there's nothing he can't do. I think maybe there's nothing he can't play. And again, he's hilarious. He's got a great sense of humor, and but he knows what he's doing. He just knows what he's doing. He knows when it's wrong. He knows when it's right. He studies it. Yeah, and he's has his own studio and has his own he's worked with a million amazing people. So to have him on these tracks. When I heard him on the tracks, mostly on Time to Be Brave album, it was like something was missing in those albums that just needed to be there. And Tom came in and just swept that album away. It's just the greatest album. And Tom's parts just brought it alive.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And once he did those parts on his own and we incorporated them into the record, I thought, we should just have him come in here and play with everybody else.
Yes.
And so I asked him if he'd be interested in doing that, and he was very enthusiastic about it.
Yes.
He likes your songs.
Yes.
And you guys had never met prior to that.
We had never met prior to that.
And, it's just one of those things where you never know, putting people in the room together, is this going to work or not?
Right.
But it worked amazingly well.
It worked amazingly well. And I think we were all a little nervous because we had sort of become this musical unit. We knew exactly what to expect and how it would go. And then Tom came in and shook some things up, but just in the exact right way, and musically, every time I play with him, I just walk away thinking, wow.
I know. And he has such a vast musical knowledge.
Yes.
I mean, not only of every song ever written.
Yes.
But also of all the technicalities.
All of it.
He and Peter get going on
these
bizarre chords.
Yes.
That I never even heard of.
Right.
And he invents chords that I don't know if anybody's using.
I think that's true. And like I said, you could pick up anything. And, we did a song called Never Grow Old. It also hasn't been put out publicly yet, but it's an incredibly simple song. But Tom just adds this little almost like bicycle wheel spinning twinkle sound. Mm-hmm. It's just always like, oh, that's what it needed.
Right.
Every time.
He always knows.
He always knows.
He always knows. And he's so easy to work with.
He's amazing.
So, I'll say to him, Tom, what are you hearing for this as an overdub? Because he's usually playing on the track, but not a featured part, generally speaking. And I said, what do you hear for this? And he says, I don't know. I got, the way he is.
Right.
I got some ideas, but what did you have in mind?
Yes.
And I tell him what I had in mind. He says, yeah, that could work. Let me try that.
And then he does it.
He does it. Yeah. And it's always perfect.
Yeah.
He's just such an asset.
Yes. Another amazing asset that we've had several different amazing violin players come in. But I'm thinking of Michael Salsburg.
Yes. Yeah, Michael is a gem.
Yeah.
He knows every style you can imagine.
Yes. Anything.
Anything. And, what really struck me was when we did My Mouth is a Gun.
Yes.
When he always plays, it's an overdub. He doesn't see anybody.
Right.
He and I do the whole thing, and
Right.
nobody sees it. They just hear the result.
Right.
So he had never met anybody. I think he had met you once.
Yeah.
And so one of those, I guess it was one of our marathon weekends.
Yes.
I said, Michael, everybody's going to be here. If you want to stop by and just meet everybody, come on by.
Yeah.
He said, oh, yeah, I'd love to do that. So he comes in. I said, the session starts at 10. He's here at 10.
Yes. Right.
Always on time.
Right.
And brought his violin. And they were running down the song. And that's just such a powerful, powerful song.
Yes.
It's hard for me to listen to, even after all this time.
Yes, me too.
And Michael came in, and he's just sort of sitting off on the side, listening to these guys arrange the song, coming up with ideas and everything. And eventually he pulls out the violin. He's just very quietly playing a little bit in the background. And I said, Michael, you want to play on the track? You feel comfortable? He says, yeah, sure, I'll do that. Which was a bit of a problem because violins are a really loud instrument.
Yes.
And standing there in the middle of all these acoustic instruments, I'm thinking, what am I getting myself into here?
Yes.
So his violin part bleeds into all the other mics.
Yes.
And, I'd like to claim that was a brilliant idea, but it was just luck that it gives the violin this ethereal quality.
Yes.
That I don't think we would have gotten otherwise.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just like, where is that coming from?
Yeah.
And he moves around when he plays, so it sounds like he's different places when he's playing.
Yeah.
And he just nailed it. And that was, his whole performance on that was when we were cutting the track. There's no overdub.
One take.
Yeah.
And I've seen him do that more than once. Where he just comes in and he just does the part in an overdubbing situation, and boom, one take. And the thing about that is, he holds the emotion of these songs like no one else. Everybody's doing their best to sort of understand what I'm saying, but Michael asks me what the song is about before he plays, and that means a lot to a songwriter. And then he plays, and it's like, this is a violin sound that could just make you cry.
Mm-hmm.
Just an absolute phenom on that. And when I hear his parts come in, they're always right where they're supposed to be, but the emotion is there. Like, he knows how to be with a song. And he's made me cry when his rendition comes in several times, where I'm like, that's it, especially with My Mouth is a Gun. Mm-hmm. That story is a story of so many humans, and, being able to use your voice to get yourself out of harm's way was an important story for me to tell. And singing is part of that story for me. And Michael just knew exactly what that felt like in some way. And he played it.
Yeah, we should say that at the beginning of each session, we learned after a while this was a good approach, that either you or I or both of us would explain the song to the people. Because, musicians don't tend to listen to the words.
Yeah, they don't care about the lyrics quite as much. They're going to try to make the beautiful music tell the story around the story that's being told. And I get that. That is their way of expression. But for me, as a songwriter, that was always number one for me. I'm learning how to be a musician. But being a songwriter was the natural way that I worked through trauma and parts of my life that I couldn't understand. And it was just my self-expression fully and totally was in the word. And it means something for me for them to know, and I have found it changes the session.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I do some silly songs and some fun songs, but I do a lot of really serious songs, and I want them to know that that comes from a deep place in my heart, even if I'm telling someone else's story. I want it to be told with respect, and I want to honor the process.
Right. Yeah, and we've got the people that do it.
They do.
Yeah. I think we've covered everybody. It's just an amazing group of people.
Yeah.
And we're just so lucky
Yeah.
that they're not only are they willing to come and do the sessions with you,
That's right.
but they look forward to it.
Yeah.
And, there's another amazing fact about those people, except for Adam and Peter, who knew each other. None of those people knew each other before they were in the room here
Yes.
together. And since that time, they always got along because musically they all respected each other.
Right.
But there's a lot more that goes on in a recording session than just people sitting there playing their instruments.
Yes.
And as a producer, I know you have to, I wouldn't say facilitate that, but you definitely have to not discourage it.
Yes.
Because that's really important for them to work as a unit.
Yeah, to get to know one another. There is something that has to happen. There has to be space for some other stuff. In the beginning, you would make sure that we all had lunch together, when we were just have a time where we were just knowing each other.
Right.
So it wasn't just work, and it wasn't just, you wanted to like someone enough to put in the effort.
That's right. And to me, the amazing thing, and it just pleases me no end, is that these guys all are in various incarnations playing together.
Yeah, now they are, setting up different, music units together, and there's a bunch of variation on that. But yeah, John might come in and do some drums on one of Adam's songs, and we also had worked with a violin player, Joseph Arnold, and I know at one point Peter and Joseph and Adam were doing some bluegrass. Joseph Arnold has a gypsy jazz kind of group, and I think he just moved to Asheville, North Carolina, another really talented musician.
Yeah, it's a shame to lose him.
Yeah, it really is. And but you see them sort of creating their own musical groups because of what we created here in the studio. And wherever they are, you should follow them because it's going to be great talent and great music, no doubt.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we should talk about the songs on the new album.
Okay, I would love to.
So why don't we just take them in the order that they are on the album?
Okay, that sounds really good.
And we start off with, a really, really powerful and timely song.
Yes.
Called The Machine.
Yes.
And you want to talk about how that song came about?
Yeah, this was the first song that we did while living on the edge, and it was probably the song I was most excited about in the beginning because it came from a real place of frustration, and I think most of the world was feeling it. I mean, this song definitely gets into a political pocket, which I have been really careful not to do. I have people that listen to my music from all over and all different ways of life. But I personally was feeling the pressure of the news cycle every day and the change every day and just the barrage of, things that would switch and change and be new in every news cycle. I was also really struggling with what was happening in terms of deportation and immigration. And I think it's important to say that. I have friends that had been here for a long time who would go in to get their papers and then they'd be gone, who had been working with the system for 10 years. And many people know I had worked, on and off in different, refugee resettlement organizations when I was younger. So I was really familiar with how hard it really is to get here, how hard it really is to get vetted. And even the human beings that came here in a way that not everyone agrees with, I just become to know them and to know their stories and what it was they were running from. Some of it is stuff we can't even imagine here. And I also think as a mother, I see that I would want my child to be wherever they could have the best life and the best education. And I know there's problems with that. I don't want to pretend like I have all the answers. I don't. And this song is a question. It's a question about that. I know I don't have all the answers, but I know that the way it looked like we were doing it for a while was too rough and too harsh. And the way that I feel like we were getting into and are still in, form of some brainwashing. We're not thinking clearly. We're not thinking scientifically. It's not the first time it's happened in the world, but to watch it happening in real time was disappointing. My husband and I also lost someone to COVID that meant something to us. And where I'm from, some people don't even believe that's a real thing. So this song was coming from a place of frustration and wanting to fight back, and also the belief that, like, I'm a musical artist who has music out in the world, and in some ways I'd been keeping myself really safe. I had not been saying what I really think, because I love a lot of people that don't think like me. But it felt wrong. It felt like it was time to say something and to put it out there so that there would be no confusion of where I really stand, for all the people who don't have a voice and for all the people who can't stand up for themselves. And so for me, it was a real taking off any mask that I had worn, especially as an Appalachian. And so it felt dangerous. It felt really scary. And actually it became a little scary. I did perform the song live, and I'll just say that I got a lot of feedback from that, and some of it was very negative and made me really wonder if I should be putting my family in harm's way by putting out a song like this, or if I should be putting myself in harm's way. I've done enough in my life and had enough hard times that it feels like this should be a time where there's peace for me and where I don't have to constantly face something. But on the other hand, it's a song and you can turn it off if you don't like it. And so we created the machine.
Yeah, and it's not only a strong story.
Yeah.
It's really a series of stories.
Yes, it is.
And, I always picture it as all these different people telling their stories.
That's right.
It's not just you telling the story.
No.
It's definitely not a you song.
Right.
In the sense that you're talking about your experience.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And I think that's an important thing for people to understand if they are offended by the political message, that it's not reflecting a strong attitude on your part so much as it is explaining how the world situation is affecting different people.
Yeah, how the pressure might be affecting a mother, who's going a little crazy, how it feels to be, in all this traffic plus all the difficulties of life, which I think everybody's feeling that. I think everybody's feeling the pressure. I think we're all feeling the pressure. We just don't know. We believe different things, but we're all feeling this sense of like, it's all too much. Plus there's the regular life. So the song starts out with all the regular life frustrations and all the things that are difficult. Plus the pressure is building. And in this song, you feel the pressure building. And then it asks a series of questions. Is it because of this? Is it because of our TV? Is it because we're going to war? Is it because, we don't support vaccinations? Is it because, and it just keeps hitting these questions. And as we're getting into hitting those questions, there's some musical amazingness going on. Particularly love to point out Peter's cello part in this, where it goes down to a level that I didn't know a cello could go.
I was surprised.
It just gets going, and it's just in the right moment where there's all this buildup and then just the darkness. And then it breathes, and then the song breathes. And, the last part of the song, which this doesn't have a traditional chorus. There's nothing traditional about this song. It is just a deep dive, and you go down so far, and then you can finally breathe. But in the breathing, I definitely address the question in a softer way. What are we doing? What are we building? And why? And the idea being that no one can really tell us what to do, and no one can really tell us who we are. And that's the machine.
Yeah. And those guys had the brilliant idea, which, I really encouraged once they started experimenting with it, that end part, there should be a key change.
Yes.
And a time signature change.
Yes.
So it really separates that part from the rest of the song.
Yeah, and it's just in the exact right moment, because that's where everything kind of softens up, and you're just sort of seeing yourself for the first time in the song. Not everyone else's story, but the way the world is. But the point being that no one can really tell you what you should think.
Right. Yep. And the second song on the album is Down Valley, which, you can tell the story, but, it's one of, was there 2 murder ballads on the album?
Yeah, I love a good murder ballad, as most people know. I like taking it in the control of the woman. I grew up with traditional murder ballads and love to play those on the banjo. And I know some people don't like them, but I think they were really the true story. I mean, most of them come from a true story. First of all, the traditional ones, and it felt like a warm blanket that I had grown up with. So when I write them, I feel that sense of that time period and that tradition. And but to put it in the hands of a woman was something that, it's been done like in country music and stuff like that. But this is a traditional way of sort of approaching it. And I like getting dark and dirty. I mean, we all know that. And so Down Valley was actually one that I just absolutely love, and I'm getting a huge response from Down Valley. So if you haven't listened to it, check it out. Every day I get some response about Down Valley, which I wasn't really expecting. But I think what makes Down Valley a little bit different is I do kind of get down into, where I'm from. But the idea in this story is that I, am slowly poisoning my partner. And there's sort of a fun little, you should have never messed with me, which is just it's something fun about that, or it brings it out of that dark place. It's more of a challenge, and the making of this song was fun, and it's beautiful, and it's just perfect in so many ways.
That's right. And even though you would never murder anybody.
I would never.
Never. It's totally believable.
Yeah.
And the details are so precise.
They're so precise. Sometimes when I'm writing songs, like I'm careful to say, okay, sometimes the song is like leading me where we're eventually going to go. And in this song, that's certainly true. But once I get there and realize what I'm going to do, I might say, okay, what kind of plant medicine would really harm a person? And I'll go find out and be careful with the details in that way. Oleander, flowers, I was growing in that song. So it's been really fun because, in some of the small clip videos I've been making, I'm able to use my, traditional family cookbook, where I'm coming up with the recipes that my grandmother taught me in order to do this, and there's some truth to how that works when you're growing up in Appalachia. There's a lot of plant medicine, and there's a lot of, natural remedies that you're using, mostly not to harm.
I know, but now I know how to poison somebody with oleander just from listening to your song.
That's right. Do not try this at home.
No. Yeah, it's a great song. And then third is Way Down Here.
That's right.
You know, and I have to say, I mean, I love every song in this album, but there's something about that song that just really appeals to me. And it gave the guys something to play that they don't normally get to do.
Yes.
You know, so you want to talk a little bit about the story and
well,
the background?
I mean, I don't really know where, again, this was just one of those things where I think I was playing with some lyrics, but again, this is like I was up till midnight writing this song and we recorded it the next day. And so it's a little bit, you know, it's a little bit Louisiana in a way. And what the message I was trying to get across was just about, you know, some of the funny religious stories that I had sort of grown up with and been pressured by, right? That definitely have there's sort of a comedy to it in a way. But the idea that I'm down in hell, and that's the place to be, you know. And so, so Way Down Here, there's something about the instrumentation in this is just a real walk away from what we normally do. It's just a little bit jazzy. It's just a little bit, I don't know, Zydeco's not the right word, but there's just this flavor.
Yeah. Well, it's got a gospel flavor.
It does. It has a gospel flavor to it.
I remember when we were talking about with the guys before we started, I said, this is a gospel rap song.
Yeah, right. A gospel rap song. So well said. That's right. That's exactly right.
And, you know, it came out a little differently than our original concept, but it's better than what we thought.
Yes.
And it was a lot of fun to record. It goes on for a long time, and because I just I mean, everybody was in that groove.
Yes, there was such a groove. But I feel like you really had a hand in this song. I feel like you really kept us on a track, but you understood where the song was going.
Yeah.
Especially in the end, where you just kind of let it keep playing.
Right. Yeah, it was like I didn't want it to end.
Right.
And it worked out really well because what happens in the end is after all the lyrics are basically done.
Right.
And I should say that after we cut the track, before anybody moved, I said, I want you all to do the chorus part. Just sing Way Down Here. Because I thought it really needed that sort of raw.
Yes.
You know, it sort of reminds me of like 1940s big band songs where the guys in the band come in with a line here and there.
Exactly.
You know, and that's the feel that I wanted for it. I wanted that kind of way off mic, you know, just guys. They're not singers.
No.
I mean, Adam is, and Ian sang on that too. One of the two assistant engineers who's got a great voice. I mean, he's been singing all his life.
Yes.
And so I just told him, and you know, near the end, I told him just keep going and going and going.
Yeah.
With the track. Because we didn't have a way to end it.
Right.
And I said, don't worry about it. Just play until you think we've had enough.
Yeah.
You know, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do because I definitely didn't want to do a fade out.
Right.
You know, but it worked out perfectly because the guys doing those Way Down Here backup voices would sort of one by one sort of just drop off.
That's right.
Until at the end, it's just you and Ian, I think, are the only voices there.
That's right.
And you're both getting farther and farther away.
Yeah.
You know, and I should point out that on that song and several of them on this album, the vocal that we recorded while they were cutting the track was the vocal we used.
Yes.
You know, and so you're singing it, you know, completely throwaway because
Yeah.
we know we're going to replace that vocal.
That's right.
Well, we never could get
Right.
it any better than that.
It was just perfect the way it was, because it was more of a feeling in the room.
Right.
And you could never capture that feeling again without having everybody together kind of doing that stuff. And this is also the one where the drummer, John O'Reilly, hilariously, he's really given it his all
Yeah.
in his vocals. So, because it's kind of like a yell out, and I'd laughed so much,
Yeah, I know.
just because it was so unlike him, and to hear his vocals. But they've been willing every time we've needed that sort of, group of guys to sort of make that sound. That's another thing that I wouldn't expect from musicians who don't typically sing, but they'll just be like, sure, no problem. And they do it. It's like another instrument.
Yeah, they're fearless.
They're fearless.
And, we had no idea how it was going to end.
Right.
And the interesting thing about this is kind of a funky sounding song in a lot of ways, but the instrumentation is drums, cello, and mandolin as the core of that.
Yeah.
Not a typical,
Right.
drums, bass, and electric guitar and keyboards and all that you would think in a song like that. But it worked perfectly.
Yeah.
And they finally got into what turned out to be the end. And I think Adam, nobody was in charge. Everybody was just having fun. And I think he just did some little thing on the mandolin that sort of keyed everybody. We're stopping now.
Yeah.
And they all ended like perfectly.
Yeah.
They never talked about it. They just did it.
And the mandolin on this is just absolutely phenomenal. And that was like one of those, I don't know if it was one take, but it was one of those one take wonders. Boom.
Right.
What a part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great song. I love that song. I never get tired of listening to it.
Okay, well, and that one we haven't put out totally publicly yet either. So, well, it's out on Native DSD if you're listening through audiophile, so you can get all these songs there.
Right. And the other thing on that is that Tom, is playing electric guitar on that.
Yes.
And he's just having fun.
Yeah.
He's just trying this and trying that, and it's always tasteful and perfect.
Yeah.
But it has this real throwaway feel to
the whole
it.
thing is like that. The whole thing is fun.
Yep. Probably the most, well, I don't want to say the most fun thing we've done, but it's definitely a fun song.
Yeah, it's definitely a walk away from something else.
And then to completely change the mood, we go into My Mouth is a Gun. And that song, we've talked about a little bit so far today, but talk about it.
Well, we've talked about the parts, and what I'll say, sort of keeping myself out of it, which I think feels important to me, and it's kind of what the song is about. You have a choice in your life to the things that happen to you, to any trauma that happens to you. This song came in the middle of us recording something else that wasn't serious. I mean, during the recording of something else, I walked over to the piano during a break, and there it was. I mean, just there it was. And then I completed it that evening. And that comes from a really deep place in my story. So that's mine. But I also tell the story for my best friend. And I tell the story for all people who have been in harm's way. My Mouth is a Gun was bubbled up because of the Epstein files. And just watching another story where no one except a woman is locked away, which I find really interesting. And then just watch it bubble up and then fade, watch it be so important and so loud and then covered, to watching the victims finally stand up and find their voice, which I can't imagine how long it has taken them to do that, how much courage that it has taken to do that. And just as a person who's, growing and getting older, I understand how when you're young, you might not be able to use your voice in a powerful way. And in fact, you're sort of taught not to in almost every other aspect. I think we're getting better about that in this society. But so you grow up thinking that being a good girl is to not do that. And I just wanted to take the power back in this song in many ways. And sometimes the only thing you have is your voice, whether they will listen to you or not, and whether they will believe you or not. Your weapon is the truth. And that's what this song is. And when I watched the victim stand up and not even be acknowledged or looked at, I just thought, yeah, we got to be talking about this. And it's a hard thing to talk about, and people don't want to look at it. I get that. So My Mouth as a Gun is a beautiful strength, and it's a tragedy. And that's what it's about.
Yeah. And it's the way we end the side on the vinyl version.
Yeah.
Because I think it sort of leaves you. I like the idea that it leaves you, because you got to go turn the record over now.
Yeah.
It's got something to think about for
Yeah.
a minute while you put up the other side of the
Yeah.
record.
Yeah. Yeah. And ultimately in that song, it's not us that have to live with these consequences. We'll become better and we'll heal, but it's really the karma of the perpetrator here. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I think you captured it really, really well.
Yeah.
Probably better than anything I've ever heard that tells that story.
Yeah.
And then we come to Centralia.
Okay.
And this was interesting when you came up with this song, because you sent me the demo of it without knowing
Right.
that I had some remote connection to Centralia.
I thought nobody had ever heard this story before in time, because this was just one of those random. This is the very first song that I wrote. This is actually outside of the day 4. I did this previously. Almost every other song was done within that. But I was trying to figure out what was I going to write about. I thought I had made the perfect album with Time to Be Brave. I mean, I still think that. I didn't know where I was going next. And so I was sort of searching. And my mom had been somewhere. I knew that she was somewhere in like Williamsburg, Virginia. And I saw this news clip where there was this fire that was happening underneath a cement parking lot under the ground, and it was near where she was staying, so I paid attention to it. And they were having trouble getting the fire out. I think there was some sort of like plastic crating or piping or something under there that had set ablaze, and they didn't know how to get the fire out. And I just thought, that's crazy. And it was near this shopping center where I knew my mom would be, so I'm thinking about the fumes, and I'm thinking about all that stuff. And she never mentioned it. I mean, she never noticed it or knew that was even happening, but I was paying attention, like, how are they going to get the fire out? I became curious, and I start looking up the news, which I never do, like anything more about the fire, and that just sort of faded and went away. So I guess they got the fire out. But while I was searching, every time I would search like fire under the ground, this Centralia would come up. And I was like, what's that? And so, of course, I click on, and I just go down this amazing and incredible rabbit hole that is ripe for songwriting. I don't think I'm the first person to write a song about it, but it was just such a wild story that there had been this fire that had been burning under the ground in Pennsylvania, in this place for it's predicted to burn for at least 250 years. And it basically happens under an old coal mining town. And a fire begins, and they are trying to mitigate it, but they just can't catch up with it to the point where it's out of their control, and still burns today, and basically slowly starts to shut down a town where many people lived, and a town like the town I grew up in, where your grandfather lived here and his grandfather lived there, and it just completely upends this place.
Right. And I had probably heard of Centralia because it's in Pennsylvania. It's a state where I live.
Yes.
There's, like many states, Pennsylvania has regions that are so different.
Yeah.
Like I'm in the Philadelphia metropolitan area, although
Right.
we're awful far from the city
Right.
in so many ways.
Right.
But my wife's family lived in Corny, New York, and we used to fly, my airplane, we'd fly up there to visit on holidays or something. Back in the days when we had more time and there were more hours in the day,
Right.
we'd just go up there, fly up there, have lunch with them, and fly back.
Yes.
But the route of flight took us right over Centralia. But it's not on the map,
Right.
And I just remember flying over that and looking out and seeing this grid of streets
Yes.
with a couple of houses, but basically all the houses were gone.
Right.
And all this smoke just seeping up all around,
Right.
And I thought, what is that? And, I had a clue because that whole area of Pennsylvania is coal mining.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just abandoned mines everywhere. Still a lot of active mines, but it's mostly just abandoned mines.
Yeah.
And like so many areas, just very desolate because the coal ran out, the towns disappeared.
Yeah.
But this town doesn't disappear in the usual sense. It's, it's still a point on the earth. It's just nobody lives there because you can't.
Right. It started to, impact their homes and, there were gases coming up. I think it was overheating their gas pumps. There are a few people who have held on and refused to leave, but I think eventually the government was offering them money to move somewhere else so they could tear down these houses.
They helped relocate them all.
Yeah.
It's quite a story.
Incredible story. And you read a story like that and you can't believe it's like, here's a story for you to write right in your lap. And I stumbled upon it. I would have never known this story otherwise. So really, really cool. Yeah. And that's also getting a response that I'm surprised by because this was more, as a songwriter, like I need to write a song. Mm-hmm. Let me write this song just like this in the box that I understand. And I had to push this song out. And it probably because of the musicians that it's just so lovely and that people really hear this story.
Right. Yeah, everybody played really well on that and really helped tell the story. Yeah. And then we come to Albatrosses. And, to a certain extent, this was an albatross around our neck.
It was. Yeah, it was.
I think we recorded it 3 times.
Yeah, I've never had anything like this happen, but I think I was having a really hard time articulating what I wanted this song to sound like. Now I don't even know, I think it is its own lane. And maybe it always was, right? I had to just put trust in Doug and into the musicians eventually. But we definitely took one take where I was like, that's not it. And we both knew it.
Yeah.
But there was nothing wrong with the track that we did. Musically, it was really great music.
Yeah.
But it just didn't tell this story. And this, again, was another, I was trying to write a story and create a story. And now it's this really big story. I mean, it has these amazing instruments, and we do bring in different musicians here.
Right. Well, I asked George and Geoff Hazelrig, who are my partners in Outer Marker Records, and we have so many other business interconnections.
Right.
And we're just really good friends.
Yeah.
And they're so busy. I mean, they are beyond busy. They're the busiest people I know.
Yeah.
And it was always, I'd really like to have them on this project.
Yeah.
But I just really didn't feel comfortable. I knew they would do it. No matter what I asked them, they would do.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to take advantage of that. But on this song, it's very piano-centric.
Yeah.
And George is a phenomenal piano player.
Yeah.
So I just said, let's try a different direction on this. And I'd like you to sort of set the direction for it.
Yeah.
And he understood the song, and he knew what to do musically. And he's there, as you remember, at the piano, working out parts for everybody and writing them out.
Yeah.
And handing them to people.
Yeah.
And, it was a totally different way.
Yeah.
We never made a record like that before.
That's right.
Exactly, that much pre-structure in place.
Exactly.
But it worked great.
It worked beautifully, and one thing that he is such an expert as is knowing right when to start building and building and building. Mm-hmm. And so this song has a really, really strong direction that it's going in. And I'm so thankful. In some ways, this is an album in general, and I'll get into more of this at the very end here, but that I am relearning, that I'm listening to for the first time in many ways.
Yeah,
So
I know
Albatrosses
what you
is
mean.
that.
Yes. Yep. And, we had Peter there playing cello, who normally does the bass part
Right.
for your songs. But we also had Joff Hazelry, who plays upright bass, who's, another really
phenomenal player.
And I thought, well, I wonder how this is going to go.
Yeah.
And it turns out the two of them, as you remember, they just sort of huddled together,
Yeah.
worked out parts,
Yeah.
and made it all fit together seamlessly.
It was completely seamless. This is the first time that I had felt nervous in a really long time. Again, my vocals are unusual and mountain vocals, and these are some really, really expert players who are used to just these amazing, beautiful projects. And could I hold up? But again, no one makes you feel that way, and it's like musicians are there to help you see your project through. So they know how to make their parts beautiful. And in many ways, George is like, just turn down the vocal. I don't even need to hear any of that, right?
Yeah.
That's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to do this with the music. And so that's a thing that I've had to learn too. It's so important to me, but it's not the only thing.
Right. And, there's a technical aspect to that project too that was challenging because the dynamics are so great.
They're so great.
And, George was really a master at that.
Yeah.
I mean, he can play any kind of music, but jazz is what he does,
Right.
but he can play classical. And, the piano is not a dominant sound in that song.
Right.
But it's the key to everything.
Yeah, it's the key to it all.
And he makes the dynamics on the piano just work perfectly.
Yeah, it's incredible.
But it was a challenge to me because if I did it the way everybody played it, the verses were inaudible.
Right.
If you were listening in the car,
right,
it was like, where did the music go?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the normal solution to that is you just put a ton of compression on it, so everything is the same loudness.
Right.
And I didn't want to do that.
Yeah, you almost couldn't do that there.
No. So it was a real challenge to maintain that feel of the dynamics because we wanted the contrast, but we had to make it technically acceptable.
Right.
So, the car is the perfect environment for challenging you to make everything be heard.
Yes.
So I think it works that way.
Yeah.
This is should I call it my co-favorite song? I have so many co-favorites.
Yeah,
But I really like this song, Healing Time.
Yeah.
And this is a song that you just sang with such abandon.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's the vocal you did.
Yes.
While they were cutting the track.
Yeah, I think I was just having a ball doing this song. I was really in a character. This song is about my stepdad, who is sort of my musical, educator in the style that we did it in. But he also just had a wild life, and he has a crazy story, and he has so many stories, But his life was in a house where snow was coming through the roof. Mm-hmm. But they had a ball. They had a great life. They just had an Appalachian life where they ran around, and it was nothing for my dad to, cook up some squirrel or, the cabinets be filled with potted meat or salted trout. Everything was something that could last. And I could tell many other very disgusting stories about, even as an older person, him getting invited to, what would be considered like a roadkill feast. And so I was just thinking about him as a kid, and he was born in 1943, but my vocals, I'm kind of even hearkening back even further. And so this is a really fun story. It's really different. And yeah, it just felt like we were just singing and playing, and the song is playful. And Yeah, and I even do sort of one part where I sort of talk into it a little bit. That's just more like a commercial. It's almost like a commercial for all these products I'm talking about right now. It's the Spam, it's the potted meat, it's it's all the things I remember and grew up with, and it's also in a style that he would find really fun.
Yeah. Song was a lot of fun to do. And
Yeah.
you remember after we recorded it, I mean, I don't think we did more than 2 takes on that.
Right.
And I'm just sitting there listening to your vocal and saying, who is this person?
Yeah.
You just became another person.
Totally. It felt like I was in a character, and it was one that was really easy for me to embody.
Yeah. And it was just so delightful.
Yeah.
Because so many of your songs are so dark.
Yeah. I like dark and serious most of the time.
And this song is dark and serious.
Yeah.
But it's also predominantly playful.
Yeah.
It was really fun.
Yeah.
And when you finished and we all came into the control room to listen to it, I said, you're not allowed to do another vocal.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Because I did not want to even try.
Yeah, it was just perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Undertow.
Yeah. Talk about Undertow.
This is my personal favorite on the album. Another murder ballad.
Mm-hmm.
All I can say about this is I don't know where this was created from, but it is just completely different from anything else that I've done vocally. I just go into a different key than I'm normally in. I don't know. It's just way more whimsical is a bad word for a murder ballad, but there's something very airy about this song to me. And I tell this story with all its dark parts, but it's just got this beauty. Maybe it's the music that makes it so beautiful. But even before I got there, and we figured it out, I just knew this song had teeth. And I feel like when I play this song, just the whole room goes quiet. And it sort of asks the question in this song, you don't really know if she actually did it or not. I mean, you suspect. She doesn't really know. She has a blackout. And
I still don't know.
Right. And so nobody really knows if it happened, but she's acting as if she might have done this. And so she has to cover that up. And so there's just a mystery to this song, and there's just an air to this song, and there's just a beauty to how we created this. There's just a beauty to this musically that is really, really fine.
Yeah. And, I don't think you definitely, agree with this entirely, but there's a hint of Broadway in this song.
Yeah, I've heard that be said. And I haven't necessarily agreed with that, but there are moments when I'm telling a story. I mean, I'm pretty dramatic, and I can feel into those. And I think even with Way Down Here, I mean, I can get into those places, right, where I'm telling a story so much. Why not Broadway, right? Why not be a little over dramatic in those places? And this certainly has some drama to it.
Yep. And to finish the album is another, this is like a bittersweet song in so many ways.
It is.
Called Never Grow Old.
Right.
And I think, correct me if your recollection is different, but I think we had finished a song, and John, the drummer, and maybe somebody else had left. And I said, well, we ended early. We had some time.
Yeah.
And I said, why don't we just go through this song for tomorrow?
Right.
And so you played it for them, and everybody, well, it was you and Adam and Peter.
Yeah.
And Tom. And you were playing the song for them, and they're just sort of wandering around. Like Tom likes to wander when he's working out a part. He's walking all around.
Right.
And I'm just sort of sitting in the middle listening, trying to figure out how we're going to do this. And I said, you know what? This is a song that's perfect for a single mic recording.
Yeah.
Where everybody gets in the right position, everybody plays. There's nothing you can do. It's like you can't change the mix.
Right.
You can't correct a mistake.
Right.
It's just going to be what it is. And that just felt like the song to me.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. That's exactly it. And that's exactly how we recorded it, standing around one mic, which for me was really nice because
No headphones.
no headphones. I'm surrounded by these incredible musicians who I trust and know and love. And, I was singing from a very real place that would become even more real later. We had been experiencing a series of losses that would continue. But at that time, my husband's father had died. And then I had a really close friend named Erin Kleinert, and her husband had tragically died very young. And so in some ways, I was writing around this idea that, we're all going at some point. But when but the idea that actually that's when time stops and we just continue forever, right? There is no ending. We're never going to grow any older than we are in that moment, or maybe than we are in our heart and spirit. In the verses of this song, I'm singing like my dad's teaching me how to ride a bike, and he's taking me camping, and he's doing all these amazing things. So there's this sweetness to these parts of like what make a memory between a person. And then, you have the parts of like Never Grow Old, which it just has this sort of like innocence in this whole song, like the magic. And in the end, yeah, I do talk about, okay, like as if you're already gone, one more thing before I'm gone, and just some advice that you would get from like the sage in your life or the person in your life. So it's beautiful and tragic, but hopefully also leaves you with this idea that like you're still there. Now, that's the last song, which is really interesting. And that song I think is gonna, for anybody who's experienced loss or has a memory that they're trying to hold on to, it's touching in that way. When we finish the album, I say sometimes, I don't even know what's on this album, right? I don't even know what these songs are. As they've been released one at a time through streaming, I have been reminded of where I was. Because for me, as soon as I left here, literally got in my car and drove all the way home, I live about 5 hours from here, I got news that my dad had died. And so it was like the album just disappeared. Everything disappeared. I had to then, figure out a whole lot of hard stuff. I mean, there's grief, of course. But then there was also like, we were still living in a house where we were fetching water. Well, I wasn't living there, but that's where my mother was living. And just, there were just emergencies that suddenly had to be taken care of. We don't come from a family where everything was dialed in and we knew what would happen next in a situation like this. And so my life became an emergency in many ways. And I was dealing with that for a really long time, between hoping that my mom's grief would be something she could manage to my own grief, and was it something I could manage to. It's almost as if the Living on the Edge album had never happened, which is sort of funny because that's sort of what it was like creating it. It was just everything was in real time, and before I had always created songs that, okay, I created them and then I'd send them to you and then we'd make them. I'd have them memorized by the time the album was out. I'd be playing them live. I wasn't doing any of that. I just needed a break. And so Never Grow Old, I realize now, was more, and maybe many of the things on this album, was almost like a foreshadowing of things to come for me. So now the album's coming out, it's coming back. And I'm surprised, delighted, and with Never Grow Old, I'm like, wow, like I knew something I was going to need, because it's a beautiful story.
Yeah.
Along with that, I just like to say, my dear friend Amara also passed away. And so these are things that I'm hoping when we make a video with this, I'm going to have a lot of pictures coming in of all these people that matter, and that are just out there somewhere, never growing old for all of us forever.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, little did we know.
Little did we know.
And, the whole album, well, these days people put out a collection of singles.
Yeah.
And to a large extent we do that as well.
Yeah.
We don't have a concept for an album
Yeah.
when we start recording.
Yeah.
It's not like we know a theme, an arc, or whatever.
Right.
But there's something about this collection of songs that just told me this is the order they have to be in, and having Never Grow Old as the last song
Yeah.
on the album was, in retrospect, just right.
It was absolutely perfect. And actually, now that I've had all of these things occur, I feel like the album is kind of a concept album, and you really should listen to it all as it was created, because it's like the peeling down of my entire everything, because I'm not just telling you some story, because I have to dig so deep every night. And so it's whatever's there and whatever is raw. Boom, story one, I grew up with these murder ballads. And boom, story two, the idea of how I've sometimes felt rebellious in religion. And boom, story three, the traumas that have occurred in my life. But then there's like the healing time, and the albatrosses getting off my back, and then of course Never Grow Old, which was things that were happening in real time as I get to a place where I lose more people, and we all end up there sometime. Like, I don't want to always be sad about it. These are great lives we're living, and are we just in the air, and can I call out to you? That is the end of this album, and I would go off into the world, and that's exactly what would occur, And it's what's coming back to me now as I am starting to heal from the grief. It's like, yeah, he's right there. He's
Yeah,
right there.
yeah,
Everybody's right there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And technically recording with one mic is really challenging.
Yeah.
Everybody did a great job.
Yeah.
It took us, maybe 45 minutes
Yeah.
to find out where everybody should be.
To be the placement on a mic, so our sounds were all balanced. I loved all of that.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it was just you guys putting me in position, but I loved the idea of that. And there was just there's a warmth in that song that you can feel.
Right. And on the end, I wanted your vocal to fade out.
Yes.
But I couldn't. I mean, I could technically turn it down.
Right.
But I didn't want to do that. So we just had you back off the mic.
Yeah, I just start walking away while singing, going backwards. And actually, we had to use Ian to make sure I wouldn't just fall backward, because I had to stay in position with the mic. So he just supported my back, and we just sort of took step after step after step. And that's the end of the song.
Right. And so it's full of imperfections.
Yeah.
I mean, musically, everybody did a great job. I'm sure, if it was a real conventional studio recording, they would have wanted to redo some things. But it doesn't matter, because it just has that spontaneity.
Yeah. One thing we keep talking about, because you come from a technical place, and, perfection is a thing in this business that you should strive toward, right? You should make it perfect when you can. But I love being in this world with everybody who has those minds, because for me, there's always a little pullback of like, yeah, but what about my voice does crack, and I didn't come into this world the same way so many of these amazing artists do. So it's like, that is the thing that keeps me real, that keeps these songs real.
Yeah.
It's just the little chip, right? The little thing that makes them real.
Yeah. And that song is very real.
Yeah.
And if you listen carefully, I don't mean to give people an assignment,
Right.
but if you're paying attention to it closely, you'll hear all that stuff. You'll hear people moving around.
Yeah.
You hear Tom, who's playing electric guitar part on that, has a couple of different pedals he's using.
Yeah.
And has a switch on it, and you can hear him click the switch.
That's right. Yeah.
And it's just got that sort of very spontaneous, raw, real feel to it.
Just like life.
Yeah, exactly. And we should also talk a little bit about the amazing assistant engineers that we have on these projects.
Indeed.
Because Ian Alexander, who's been helping me on recording sessions for over 40 years.
Yeah, which is amazing.
Totally amazing. He makes his living as a voiceover artist. And, I guarantee everybody out there has heard him.
Definitely.
On
he
commercials
is
or
amazing.
narrations or something. He's really good.
Classic, amazing voice.
Yes. And a great singer.
Yeah.
And we've used him a couple times. But he's also a very technical guy.
Yeah.
And he does his own recordings of things that he does. And we've been working together so long that I rarely have to tell him anything.
Yeah.
He just knows how to set up the room.
Yes.
I tell him what mics I want to use and things like that, where I want the people in the room. But after that, I don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
Because he'll take care of all that. And, and he's handy also musically because he's sitting there listening to what's going on.
Yeah.
And he'll hear things that, that I'll miss. Because I have a way of working where I focus on the thing that bothers me the most.
Right.
Solve that.
Yes.
And then go down to the next level.
Yeah.
Until I get them all solved as much as possible.
Yeah.
So sometimes there's something going on in there
Right.
that I haven't gotten down to yet.
Right.
He'll hear some of those things and point them out.
Yeah.
And I'll say, yeah, you're right. You want to move that mic a little bit or change it to a different mic or whatever. So it saves time.
Yeah, it saves time. And you have a lot going on. You're managing a whole lot at once.
And then we have Matthew
Yes.
Matthew Glossen, who's a young guy.
Right.
And sort of ironically, I think, he was in Tom Spiker's class at University of the Arts.
Right.
So he knows Tom as his teacher.
Right. Right.
It's kind of a strange dynamic, but they get along great. And he's a young guy, not much experience, but he's really smart and sharp.
Right.
And so, I see him as somebody that's coming up and will be a value not only to me, but also to the Hazelrigs, because when they do their own recording, they could use his help as well.
Yeah, Matthew is another person who just comes into a room and puts everyone at ease. He's really easy to get along with. And I think when you're doing that kind of technical work, there's also this mastery of being invisible. Right? Like you're just coming in, fixing the things. He's perfect at it. He's just there. And he's there and he's got you, but so unassuming. I really like him.
Yeah, he's great. And he gets along with everybody so well.
He's great.
He's just one of the guys.
One of the guys.
I think for the first few sessions, he felt a little intimidated.
Yeah.
But not anymore.
Me too. I get that.
Yeah. So, we finished day 4 of Living on the Edge. And as I do with every album, I say, this is the best thing we've done.
That's right.
How can we top this?
Yeah, that's right.
But now we're working on this 5th album, which doesn't have a title yet.
Yep.
And it's like we've got 4 songs done that are all terrific songs.
After we finished Time to Be Brave, I thought, that's it. That's all I've got. Only because I'd never done anything that I felt so proud of musically or lyrically. And then we did this album, day 4 of Living on the Edge. And now that I'm hearing this and kind of becoming part of it again, I think, wow, that's really something different. We are not staying in any box, certainly. Mm-hmm. And you've never put me in one. And I really appreciate that. It's an incredible album, and I'm getting so much feedback. I know that's true, but you're right. Now we're creeping into album 5, and it's not like anything we've done before either.
Right.
And we did something yesterday that's sort of insane. So I think we're still growing, and that's really exciting. I can't wait to see what happens next.
Yeah, me neither. And despite the fact that we're incorporating all these other musical influences and styles into what you're doing now, at the core, nothing's changed. It's still you.
Yeah, I really feel that too. Nothing's changed and everything's changed.
Yeah.
It's like...
It's just growth.
Yeah. And that's what we should be doing musically and in every other way.
Right.
So we've got it. I've waited half the morning. I've waited half the night. I'm like a ticking time bomb in a world without a light. This traffic's back for miles. This highway's full of spite. Some ragers squeal and squabble. Some